Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, today I got a fun and exciting episode for you guys today, and maybe the weirdest Super Mario Bros. ROM hack I have ever played. This is Super Mario Bros. 40th Mario Syndrome, and it's made by a group called Lots of Spaghetti. That is definitely a mouthful, but I got through it, and when I say that this thing is just absolutely bizarre, world strange, and fun in all the best ways, I 100% mean it. And just so you know, this is basically taking the idea of Super Mario Bros., using the Super Mario World engine, and giving you something that is absolutely straight up a fever dream of Mario that you've never seen before, but will definitely enjoy. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But honestly, there are a ton of different fan games and ROM hacks coming out for Super Mario Bros. 40th anniversary, and honestly everyone is showing Nintendo up because all they did so far is release a couple free wallpapers via email for the 40th anniversary, and that is it. So you have to leave it to fans to do what Nintendo won't or don't, and this is definitely one of those entries where it's just absolutely stunning what fans can come up with when they're just being creative with the overall Super Mario Bros. Formula, because the reality is your expectations of this game are set in stone. What you think a Super Mario Bros. Game would be like is something that if you played it once or 100 times, you're going to instantaneously understand this is Mario or this is not Mario. Something like Mario Syndrome here plays around with those expectations in all of the best ways. All of the warp zones are still going to be where you know them to be, but this game basically is both Super Mario Bros. As well as a completely new thing all at the same time, and that's really where it kind of plays around with those expectations of what you're going to expect to see and experience, because a level like this right here, absolutely just some vaporwave aesthetic nonsense that does not belong in a Mario game whatsoever, but absolutely works. And this sprite here, not even sure where the hell that comes from, absolutely discerning in all of the best ways possible. And that is what Mario Syndrome does better than basically any other ROM hack I've ever played. It makes me feel like I'm playing a Super Mario game while at the same time playing some rejected beta from Nintendo's archives that never made it out the door. And I don't mean that in a negative way, I mean it in a positive way, because this is a full game. You're going to have all of the worlds here, and it's absolutely playable and a ton of fun. I just mean when you see artwork from games in development that end up being nothing like the game you actually get, Mario Syndrome has all of those different concepts. And why is there a pointer finger on the flagpole? I have absolutely no idea whatsoever. But returning back to the underground and going the normal route versus taking the actual warp pipe, there's something about small Mario here. It looks like a squashed toad and not actually the Mario that you remember from the games. And these Goombas definitely look a little bit more like Danny DeVito than Goombas at this point in time. But I am curious, leave me a comment down below and you tell me so far what you think of the art style here. I know it's probably going to be a 50-50 mix. Some people are going to absolutely love it, and it's going to be very divisive, and some people are going to absolutely hate it. For me personally, I love just how weird it is. I love the parallax scrolling here in these sort of levels. Everything about this is fun and is charming and completely straight up weird at the same time, and those are qualities that I absolutely love in a ROM hack. But the good thing is, it is still an insanely fun game, because it wouldn't matter how weird it was if the gameplay didn't match and it wasn't fun to play. And on the soundtrack front, it definitely does a lot of odd things as well. So go ahead and listen for 45 seconds. I'll be right back with a lot more. I mean, fun music, fun vibes, even the sound effects there have more reverb on them, kind of making them have that bizarre world sound where you know you've heard it before, but you haven't heard it quite like that. And moving over to Luigi here, not sure if he's wearing a backpack or he just kind of looks a little bit maldeformed. I'm not quite sure what's going on with any of the sprites, but that's kind of the charm of it as well. And there's something about all of the colors here. They do not look like colors that would be in any sort of Mario game, but obviously they are instantaneously recognizable as being close to what you would expect as well. And that's what I mean when I say kind of the beta status aesthetic of something like this, because if you go and look at different prototype images in Nintendo games back in the day, a lot of times you would see colors and sprites that never actually made it into finished games. Like some of the stuff with Yoshi from one of the leaks absolutely didn't look like a Yoshi I'd ever seen before, and that is always fun. And that really is the type of thing about these ROM hacks. They are hyper creative, and it's stuff that you wish Nintendo would do more of, because honestly their celebration for the 40th anniversary of Super Mario Bros. Was absolutely anemic versus what fans have done, which has been giving giving you so many different looks at Mario, so many remasters and ROM hacks. But another soundtrack sample and I'll be right back with a lot more. I mean, in some ways this game kind of feels like what could have happened if Nintendo had actually completed the deal with Sony and released the Sony PlayStation Nintendo Combo CD-ROM, whatever you want to call it, the Nintendo PlayStation or otherwise, because I always hear like 3 or 4 different names mentioned on that. You'd get something like a Redbook quality soundtrack, even though this isn't quite Redbook here, just kind of has those vibes to it, and you'd have somebody maybe like Sony making a Mario game in their own unique way, because in some ways, in all the best ways actually, this reminds me of some of the Mario games like Hotel Mario on the CDI, where you had those characters that were recognizable but also look completely different. Now of course something like Mario Syndrome here is going to be infinitely more fun than Hotel Mario, even though that game does have its own charms, but that's kind of just what it's like playing something like this. You've played this 100 times before, so developers out there need to really do something to pivot up your expectations, and those reds there on the edges of the brick really do make it look like there is real-time lighting where there is none. So there's definitely been a lot of small touches in the graphics to really make this thing feel like it is punching above the Super Nintendo's own processing power, but the reality is it's just straight up a Super Nintendo game. And if you're wondering where you can play it, this was captured on Mr. FPJ. You can also play it via software emulation, or if you have a flash cart, you can play it on your original Super Nintendo as well. And I love all these different Toads there. Definitely look like they've had a very bad day. Toad had a look on his face like he shut down a 4 a.m. bar and then went to a diner afterwards and passed out in the gutter on the street, but I mean that in a positive way. But this is again what is so creative about the Mario fan universe out there. For one game, there's an infinite amount of ideas that people have, and I'm not saying every single ROM hack hits. I've definitely played a bunch that I thought might make interesting videos, but I ended up just basically throwing away the captures. I didn't stick with the game and didn't have fun. But something like Mario Syndrome here, absolutely a blast. A big thanks to Kilter Music for helping with the capture. I made him play it as well. I didn't tell him what it was going to be because I wanted to get his overall reaction to what was going on, and he kept sending me messages being like, this is absolutely just batshit crazy, and that is the reality of it. But it is at its core a very fun Mario game to celebrate Mario's 40th anniversary, and that's definitely something that we should be celebrating, and why I love making ROM hack videos, even if they don't give me the best views of stuff that I do make. They just make me happy, and I love to see the creativity out there for fans of games thinking I can do something unique. But one last soundtrack sample and I'll be right back with more. If you see what I mean about playing around with expectations, I bet your expectation was that their soundtrack sample was going to be something very strange like the first one, but honestly it plays it very straight and very close to some of the music that you would hear out of any Mario game. And I love Bowser being dropped out in the lava here and seeing what the next Toad has to say. And like I said, pretty much all of these Toads look like they just absolutely went on a bender, but I get it, he is upset because he dropped his ice cream, and we all would be. Mario Syndrome is just straight up one of the weirder games out there, and it kind of plays a little bit like Super Mario Bros CD, another in-progress ROM hack that kind of plays around with the expectations of what Mario could possibly be. And that's something I've always loved about these type of ROM hacks, and I do stuff in my own artistic practice as a filmmaker. Doing something that makes you think it's going to be one thing and actually ends up being another is one of my favorite places to play around with, for lack of a better term, when it comes to making content and making artwork in my own personal practice. The idea idea of what you think you're going to be getting versus the reality of what is you're actually given, that is a fun space to kind of create in. And something like Mario Syndrome absolutely takes advantage of all of those expectations. So if you want to check this one out, the link for the patch is in the description below, and I will also leave a link, if I remember, to the actual patcher. And trust me, I totally get it. I say these things and then absolutely forget to put the links in, so if I did, just yell at me in the comments and I'll fix it up quickly, because I batch upload stuff and I batch voice over stuff, so sometimes I forget what it is I said when I actually get to the upload process. But take it from me, Mario Syndrome is a straight up 10 out of 10 in my opinion, but it is so weird and is so divisive. You might think it's a 1 out of 10. It's one of those things that's going to make a lot of people sit on the fence, but that's a fun place to be. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.